But unfortunately, it's actually become a very dangerous platform. It's a disservice to the public if we don't pause and look at the serious downsides of social media. Hi, this is Jim Breon. Welcome to this YouTube channel where we discuss all things mental health. What I'm going to be talking about today is one of the most severe risks to the mental health of adolescents in our country. And it's something that people are just really becoming aware of. One of the probably worst impacts in the last few years on young people's mental health has been the pandemic, when schools were shut down and people in the prime of their teen years, when social interactions was so important, they were relegated to staying home, and it really disrupted a lot of their developmental processes. But what I'm going to be talking about today is actually social media, because recently we've started to understand some of the impacts that social media has on teenagers and their developing brains. And I want to give a caveat because I am on social media. This is social media. I create informational videos on different platforms. So it's not that social media is all bad by any stretch. In fact, there are a lot of positive things. It's estimated that something like 97% of teens between 13 and 16 are pretty much online all the time. And there actually are a lot of positives that they take from social media. It helps them to communicate, build networks, share with other people, express themselves. It's entertainment. They learn about current events. Now that, again, another caveat there, when people are learning about current events and news from social media, it's actually a very risky thing, because more and more social media news and information is misinformation. So people are often misinformed if that's where they're getting their news from. But they do lead to meaningful connections for a lot of people. Some of the downsides are that on social media, teens are connecting with a broader range of people, but on a more shallow level. In fact, you might even have dozens or even hundreds of quote-unquote friends that you know nothing about except for their highlight reel, where people post only the parts of their life that they want you to see. And one phenomenon that we're starting to recognize through social media and, in fact, cell phone use in general is what a researcher named Linda Stone has coined the term continuous partial attention. What that means is, because we're all becoming more and more distracted by cell phones, devices, social media, that it's like our brains are on constant multitask mode. Some of the other problems with social media, especially when it comes to teenagers, is that we're learning that it can negatively impact their sleep patterns, especially when teens are posting things online, pictures and whatnot. They can really be subject to bullying, to intimidation, peer pressure, and even predation from people. In fact, a couple of years ago, Instagram and Meta, their parent corporation, did research into their Instagram platform, and they discovered that Instagram was actually drastically increasing the risk of 13-year-old girls of being exposed to dangerous eating disorder material, and it was driving rates of eating disorders. Unfortunately, they suppressed that information. It came out after all. But these are some very serious issues that I think we have to really address and take seriously as parents and as a society. Studies show that when teens are spending more than 3 hours a day on social media, that they have a heightened risk for mental health problems. And there's a direct link between high levels of social media use and depression, anxiety, and sleep problems. One of the biggest problems is what we call social comparison. Teens are online and they're looking at other people's profiles, other people who airbrush their images, and they make themselves look as perfect and beautiful and flawless as possible, and then they're comparing themselves to those people, and it's driving their self-esteem down. And there's also an issue that's called social contagion, when there's a phenomenon that happens with a group of teens, behaviors seem to replicate themselves very quickly because of social contagion, including things like self-harm and suicidality. And because of teens' impulsive nature, if they're posting intimate pictures online or highly personal information, it puts them really at risk of being preyed upon, being bullied, being harassed, or even blackmailed. And of course, the privacy concerns are increasingly more alarming. This actually has the specter of becoming a really tremendous healthcare risk to generations of young people. And with the current development of artificial intelligence, it really causes us to pause and really ask, what is actually happening in this culture with social media and information, when it looks like artificial intelligence can create images, videos, sound that look like a real person but isn't a real person. I think we're going to eventually get to the point where nobody will really be able to believe anything that they see online. One platform in particular, from research and also from my own personal experience working with teens, is particularly dangerous, and that's the Discord platform. Now, Discord is a social media platform that originally, I believe, was designed to help people who game connect with each other, share ideas, share games, and it was all about fun. But unfortunately, it's actually become a very dangerous platform, and there's been a lot of different components of Discord that have had to been taken down because there's no gatekeeping. There's nothing to prove that you are, 18, and there's no age verification. The servers that drive it are actually outside of the United States, and unfortunately there are all kinds of dangerous behaviors that are promoted on Discord servers, and there's a lot of predation that happens. I've actually worked with a couple of teens who on Discord were contacted by adults posing as teenagers, and it created a severe risk to this one young lady. Another young woman that I worked with was on a Discord server and somehow came across a group that was talking with people about how to commit suicide. And this was a suicidal young woman, and there were actually people online encouraging her to kill herself. When we get to that point, I think it's a disservice to the public if we don't pause and look at the serious downsides of social media, despite all of the positive things. And again, I create videos on social media that are educational, and it has the possibility of really helping people. But we have to look at the serious mental health risks, especially since the Surgeon General's advisory came out just recently. The Surgeon General of the United States has really identified some of these serious problems with social media. And in this country alone, there have been 1,200 families that have filed lawsuits against social media corporations because they're saying that their content is dangerous to teenagers, and some of them have actually had children that lost their lives because of something that had happened online with them. So the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory that came out really points out that social media is having some dramatic effects on the adolescent brain in a very important developmental stage. And there are extreme and inappropriate and even harmful content that continues to be easily and widely acceptable, spread through direct pushes, unwanted content exchanges, and algorithms. And it's really pointing to the reality that eventually these platforms are going to have to somehow be regulated because they're not regulating themselves. There's actually a movement to get social media platforms to start paying for our personal data that they're taking for free. Issues ranging from eating disorders to stunted sleeping patterns to sexual exploitation, self-harm, acute depressive episodes, and even possible factors that lead to suicide and even onset of attention deficit disorder are possibly linked to youth screen time and social media use. So we really have to look at these issues. So what can parents do? First of all, you have to set reasonable limits and actually find out what your teens are looking at on social media and monitor their accounts. Sometimes it's really helpful for parents to have contracts with their teens, literal contract that you write up, talking about how many hours of social media use you can use, and only after homework is done. You can apply that contract to video game use or any other behavioral issue that might be going on. And you have the teens actually sit down and go through and create that contract, including consequences, with you. You have to explain what's okay and what's not okay. And I think it's also very important to encourage face-to-face contact with friends so that their contact with people is not solely on social media. This is particularly important for teens that are vulnerable to social anxiety disorder. And talk about social media. Remind your teens that social media is full of unrealistic images and they shouldn't base their self-esteem on those things. And if you think that your teen is experiencing signs or symptoms of anxiety disorders or depressive symptoms related to their social media use, get some help for them. And I think it's important for all of us to inform ourselves. Look at the Surgeon General's advisory and understand what some of these points are all about. I think it can be really helpful to inform yourself through some credible sources like Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education, where they have a number of very well done videos done by and for teens talking about their experiences with social media and any number of topics. And look at some of the documentaries that have come out recently, including things like The Social Dilemma, and Fake Famous. Once again, social media can have tremendous positive impacts. It can help people connect, share information. It can be an avenue for self-expression, even education, which is why I create information on social media. But we do have to look at the downsides and inform ourselves and protect the really vulnerable people, including our teenagers. I'm really curious what your thoughts are and encourage you to put comments in the comment section and let me know what you think and ask questions and let me know what you'd like to hear about on this channel. And between now and the next time I see you or talk with you, take care of yourself.